Right, when adding mixed fractions like that, so that's fractions with whole numbers, it's always best to convert the mixed fractions into improper fractions, because that way all of the time your calculation will work. So the way to do that is to convert the whole number into a fraction by multiplying it by the denominator, 3 times 5, and that gives us 15/5 plus the 2/5 over there, and in total we get 17/5. We do the same for the other mixed fraction, so we multiply the denominator by the whole number. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 16/4 plus the 2/4, which gives us 18/4. Now we have a fraction, improper fractions that we can add with. Now we're going to use our butterfly method. So we're going to draw the two wings, the body, and the two feelers. Okay, so to get we've got to get the denominator the same to be able to add or subtract fractions. So the way to do that is we just multiply the two denominators together to get a common denominator. 5 times 4 is 20. Okay, so now we know our denominator is 20. Then we multiply across the wings. So we are going to go 4 times 17, which equals 68, which we'll write in our feeler. And then we're going to go 5 times 18, which gives us 90. And remember, we are doing addition here. We're adding the fractions. 68 plus 90 gives us 158. So our answer is 158/20. Now that's an improper fraction. So what that means is that the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So we've got to say, how many times does 20 go into 158? Okay, and it goes into 158 7 times with 18 remainder. Now our denominator is still 20, so we've got it to 7 wholes and 18/20. Now we can simplify that fraction because we can see that 18 and 20, both of those could be divided by 2. So simplifying that fraction, we'll get 7 and 9/10. Right, number 2 is a subtraction problem. So again, if it's either addition or subtraction, we use our butterfly method. Because there are no mixed numbers, we can go straight into doing our butterfly method. So we'll draw our wings, draw our body, our feelers. Okay, now we first want to get a common denominator, so we need to multiply the two denominators. 7 times 3 is 21. Then we need to multiply within the wings. 3 times 3 is 9. 7 times 1 is 7. Remember, we're doing subtraction now. So we know our denominator is 21. 9 minus 7 gives us 2. So 2 over 21. Now nothing can divide into both 2 and 21, so that's as simple as the fraction can be. So that is the final answer. Okay, with number 3, we've got a mixed fraction times by a whole number. Now we've already done how to turn a mixed number into a improper fraction. We're going to times the denominator by the whole number. 2 times 5 gives us 10/5 plus our 1/5 that we've already got. So therefore we've now got 11/5. Okay, and it's multiplication. Now comes the part that most people have found tricky. How do you turn a whole number into a fraction? Well, 3 is the same as 3 ones. Okay. Now, the easiest way is to look at it as our other fraction is a fifth. So how can we turn 3 ones into fifths? And like everything with fractions, all we have to do is do both to the numerator and the denominator. So let's say 1 times 5, that'll give us a denominator of a fifth. So if we do the same to the numerator, 3 times 5 is 15. So therefore, 3 equals 15/5. And we can check that by saying if we divide 5 into 15, we should get 3, which we do. So instead of 3, we can put our fraction 15/5. Now we have a multiplication sum, and because it's multiplication sum, we just multiply straight across. That's all we have to do, so we need to multiply those two and those two. So 5 times 5 is 25, that's our denominator. 11 times 15 is 165. Right, so now we've got an improper fraction there. The numerator is bigger than the denominator. So we could say, well, how many times does 25 go into 65? And it goes in 6 times with 15 remainder. Our denominator doesn't change, it's still 25. However, we can simplify that fraction, because 15 and 25 both end in a 5. That means we can divide both of them by 5, which means we can simplify the fraction to 6 and 3/5. Right, with number 4, it's division. So division, we follow our rule of K for keep, C for change, F for flip. So let's do that. The first one, we keep that fraction, 5/6. Next, we change the sign from division to multiplication, and then we flip the last fraction to turn it into 4/2. Now we have a multiplication fraction problem, which is easy because again we just multiply straight across. And if we do that, 6 times 2 is 12, 5 times 4 is 20. Okay, again, our numerator is bigger than our denominator. It's an improper fraction, so we need to say, well, how many times does 12 go into 20? And it goes once, and it has 8 remainder, and of course our denominator hasn't changed, so the answer is 8, 1 whole and 8/12. Now we can simplify that because 8 and 12 can both be divided by 2, which would give us 1 and 4/6. Actually, in fact, we can simplify that even further, can't we? Because both of those can still be divided by 2, which gives us 1 and 2/3 as our answer. Now, the quickest way to figure number 5 out, which is the biggest and smallest fraction, is to look at what would half be for that fraction. Well, 3/6 is already a half. We can see that because we can divide 3 into both of them, so it actually gives us a half. Half of a ninth would be 4.5. So that's telling me that this is actually smaller than a half. So it's going to go below 3/6. So we'll put 3/6 in the middle and we'll put 4/9 over there. Let's have a look at 7/8. So 7/8, half of 7/8 would be, half an eighth would be 4/8. So that's saying that 7/8 is bigger than a half. So that tells us that it's going to go on that side, above 3/6. And that's just a quick way of figuring out which is smallest to biggest. Okay, when you're trying to find out a fraction of any whole number, the first thing you need to do is figure out what is 1 of that denominator. So in this case, we want to figure out what is 1/6. And the way to do that is to think, well, 30, our whole number, that's our whole. So let's take 30 and put it as a numerator, and 6 is our denominator. Now it's just a matter of simplifying, because how many times does 6 go into 30? Well, if you know your times table, you will know that 6 goes into 30 5 times. Right, so now we know that So now we know that 1/6 equals 5. We want to know what 5/6 are. And if 1/6 is 5, all we need to do is say, well, therefore, 5 times 5 means 5/6 are 25. So the answer is 25 boys.